Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple released iOS 26.3.1a to the public. iOS 26.3.1 is a background security improvement, and it's available around the world at the same time for everyone on all iOS 26 supported devices. However, if you're running iOS 26.4 betas, you won't have the update as you're on a newer version, and you would need a computer to downgrade to install that version. Now, if you want to install the latest update, iOS 26.3.1a, if you're on iOS 26.3, you would typically just go to your settings, then you can go to General and Software Update, and you'll see it there as well. However, if you're on 26.3.1 already, what you need to do is find it in a different location. You'll go into your settings, scroll down to where you get to Privacy and Security, then scroll all the way to the bottom, and you'll see Background Security Improvements. If we go into this, you'll see it says automatically install, and it should pop up for you automatically. If it's not showing up, you can turn this off and then try again. You'll see it pop up, but either way, you can just leave that on automatic if you'd like to. And you'll see here it is, iOS 26.3.1a. The background security improvement provides additional protection and is recommended for all users. The good thing about these is you can uninstall them as well, so we'll take a look at that in a little bit. Now, if you're just installing this from an older version, the overall size is going to be fairly large. I did that on the iPad so you could see it, and you'll see it had to reinstall the whole OS. This is not adding additional storage, but is just reinstalling over the OS itself, so it will show up like this. However, if you're not installing it that way, it could be much smaller, but it doesn't show you initially. So in order to install it, just tap Install, put in your passcode, and then it will start downloading. Now, along with this, Apple also released iPadOS 26.3.1a and macOS 26.3.1a. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the build number, and then we'll talk about what's new. So you can do that by going into your settings, going to General, then About. And as you can see, we have iOS 26.3.1, the regular build from before with 23D8133, and now we have a background security improvement, iOS 26.3.1a, with a build number of 23D771330A. Now, as far as what's new in this particular update, well, that's specific to security updates. So if we go into Safari, for example, you'll see here it says Apple Security Releases. If we scroll down, we can take a closer look. And you'll see here under Apple Security Updates, we have background security improvements for iOS, iPadOS, and macOS with the corresponding version here. If we go into this and scroll down, we can see that there's one thing that they've fixed here. It's specific to WebKit, or the underlying code for Safari, and it says the impact was processing maliciously crafted web content may bypass same origin policy. To fix this, the description is a cross-origin issue in the navigation API was addressed with improved input validation. We have the CVE number and the person that tipped them off to the issue they were having. So this is something that is very important. It definitely should be installed, and there are no other features that go along with this. So this should not affect performance, it should not affect battery, and it shouldn't affect anything else. However, if it does, you can uninstall it. But let's first check out Geekbench. We'll take a look at that either way, as some people were concerned as the phone does heat up as it's installing an update and using the processor. Let's run it just to see what we get. Benchmarks just completed, and keep in mind on the iPhone 17 Pro, it just rebooted with the security update, and then I ran this right away. So these would be a little bit low typically, but you'll see single core on the iPhone Air is 3,710 with 9,364 for multi-core. If we compare that with the initial install of 26.3.1, it's doing quite well. No issues whatsoever, well within the margin of error. I would not expect this to really affect performance in any way. It also shouldn't affect battery, but keep in mind you just installed a major update, or at least a security update that rebooted the system, sort of did a lot of processing in the background, and give it a few days. If you do see battery degrade a little bit, it should come right back up. Of course, you can uninstall that. We'll talk about that in a moment, but everything seems to be smooth and fluid as far as overall speed. It seems like it's nice so far. I would not expect any bug fixes whatsoever in this update, though, so don't expect anything there. Of course, we'll see how it is in the weekend follow-up video. But this is the first of its kind background security improvement, and if it does cause issues, well, then you can change that as well and uninstall it. So if we go into our settings, we'll go back here. So let's go back. We'll go back into Privacy and Security. So the same place where we installed it, we'll go back into it. Under Privacy and Security, scroll to the bottom, you'll see Background Security Improvements, and you'll see Installed Today. If you tap the little I here, let's go ahead and remove and restart. We'll try it out, see if we can remove it, and then it should bring it right back to 26.3.1 without needing a computer to do this. This would be great to be able to downgrade to your device with this, but let's see what it does if it actually uninstalls it. So we'll give it a moment to do that. Once it reboots, we'll take a look at it. After a moment, the phone asked me to reboot it. Now that it's rebooted, once it booted back up, it says iOS background security improvement 26.3.1a has been removed from this iPhone. Let's go ahead and unlock it and take a look. So if we go back into our settings here, give it just a second as everything seems to have rebooted, go down to privacy and security, scroll to the bottom, you'll see background security improvements, and we'll give it just a moment here, see if it shows back up. There it is. We can reinstall it. So if we go back into our build number, which is under General and then About, you'll see we no longer have it installed. So we can reinstall it if we'd like, or uninstall it if it's causing us issues. So if you're wondering if you should install iOS 26.3.1a, absolutely, I would install it, and then of course, see what works. If it doesn't work, if it gives you problems, you can always uninstall it. I would love to see this with future updates from Apple, but so far it's just with background security improvements. When it comes to future releases, iOS 26.4 is next. I would expect iOS 26.4 RC as soon as tomorrow, as iOS 26.3 RC was on a Wednesday. However, Apple doesn't have a set date for this. If we see an RC tomorrow or later this week, we could see a public release on the 23rd. However, if we see iOS 26.4 Beta 5, then we could see an RC the following week with a public release sometime around the end of March. However, Apple has said with their AirPods Max 2 release that you need iOS 26.4 for that, and that releases early in April. So we could have a couple more betas or an RC next. We just don't know. As far as future releases, iOS 26.5 Beta 1 is when I would expect probably Siri 2.0, at least in some form. And then, of course, iOS 27 is the next major update. We'll see the first beta typically in the second week of June at WWDC 2025. So lots of things to look forward to. And of course, this is a first of its kind update where we haven't seen one of these released to the public before. So hopefully we'll see more of these so you don't need a full update to install future security updates, just to patch something small. So that's everything with iOS 26.3.1a. This is the first time we've had a background security improvement released to the public, and Apple used to have rapid security responses, but they've favored this instead. So I'm not sure why, but maybe we'll have these in between major point upgrades with feature updates with 26.4, 26.5, and then maybe background security improvements in between if they need to patch something with security updates. Let me know how it's going for you, and of course we'll talk about it in the weekend follow-up where we'll talk about battery, whether or not we had to uninstall it and roll back. Of course, I'd love to hear from you and your experience overall. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.